Hi everyone, so now we're going to be talking about how to write linear equations given a point and a slope. So there are two equations that we're going to talk about really fast, and those two equations are the slope-intercept form, which we've kind of already talked about, which is y equals mx plus b. And then the other one that we're going to talk about that we're going to use a lot in the next couple of videos is the point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. Now these are just two different forms of the same equation, but what we're really going to do is we're going to start with this bottom equation, this point slope form, and then we're going to convert it to the top equation, because the top equation is just a little bit simpler, a little bit prettier, a little bit easier to read, and so we can actually use the second equation to convert to the first, particularly when you have one point and one slope. So let's start going through some examples. The first example is, what we want to do is write an equation of the line that goes through the point 2, 3 and has a slope that's equal to 2. So let's first start by talking about how to label these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to label my point x1 and y1, because we know that in a point the x comes first and the y comes second. Now we label them x1 and y1 just because that's what the equation we'll use. The regular x and regular y inside of that point slope equation stay there. We don't replace them with anything, and so we want to use something to signify what we're going to replace, and that's that 1, so x1, y1. And then your slope, if you remember, is m. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take that point slope equation, which is y minus y1 equals m, and then in parentheses x minus x1, and I'm going to replace the y1, the m, and the x1 with what the numbers I have for this example are. So it's going to be y minus my y1, which is 3, equals my m, and my m we decided was 2, and then parenthesis x minus my x1, which is 2. Okay, so now all I have to do, what I want to do, is simplify and solve this for y so that it ends up looking like this equation, this y equals mx plus b equation. So in order to do that, what I'm going to do is distribute the 2 inside the parentheses on the right side. So on the left side, I'm just going to leave it as y minus 3, then equals, it's going to be 2 times x, which is 2x, and then 2 times negative 2, which gives me negative 4. This is almost right, or we're really close. Now we just need to solve this for y. So to solve it for y, we're going to add 3 to both sides. And when I add 3 to both sides, I can only add that 3 to the negative 4. I don't add it to the 2x. The reason why I don't add it to the 2x is because it's not like terms with 2x. It doesn't have an x. So I only add it to the thing that it's like terms with. So the 3's on the left side cancel out. I'm just left with y. And then that's equal to 2x, negative 4 and positive 3 gives me negative 1. That's my answer. That's in the y equals mx plus b form. So from here, I can tell you that that was an eraser. Let me try that again. So I can tell you that my slope is equal to 2, because that's like my m. So slope equals 2. And they already told me that in the question, so I don't really need to harp on that. But then I also know that this negative 1 is my y-intercept. So now in this form, it makes it much easier to graph it and to kind of understand some more information about it. That's why we want to put it into that y equals mx plus b form. Okay, let's go through another example. In this example, we want it to go through the point 4, negative 1, and to have a slope of 1/2. So once again, we're going to start with our point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And then I'm going to, oh, first we need a label, sorry. So the point, we would have x1, y1, because x always comes first, and then y comes second, and then our slope is our m. All right, so now we're going to replace the x1, y1, and m in our equation with the numbers that we have from this question. So it's going to be y minus my y1, and my y1 is -1. What I'm going to do is put that -1 in parentheses. It's easiest if you put negative numbers in parentheses, just so you don't get confused by the two negatives right next to each other. And then equals my m, and my m is 1/2. And then x minus my x1, which is 4. Okay, so we're going to kind of do two steps in one right here. I'm going to simplify the left side and simplify the right side. So when I simplify the left side, notice that there are two negatives right next to each other, the y minus the -1. When you have two negatives right next to each other, that's basically saying that we have two negatives multiplying each other, and we know that a negative times a negative is a positive. What that tells me is that I can rewrite this as y plus 1. So anytime you see two negatives right next to each other like that, make it a big positive. And then to simplify the right, we just distribute the 1/2 inside the parentheses. So I have 1/2 times x, which would give me 1/2 x. Then 1/2 times -4, which would give me -2. Okay, so now we just want to get this y by itself. To get y by itself, we need to move the 1. To move the 1, we subtract 1 from each side. And once again, we're going to subtract 1 from just the -2, not the 1/2 x, because it's not like terms. The 1's on the left side cancel out. We just left with y equals, and then we have 1/2 x, -2 and -1 gives me -3. And that is my equation in the slope-intercept form. Okay, let's do another example. So in this example, we want it to go through the point -3, -5, and we want the slope to be undefined. So this one's weird because the slope is undefined, and if you remember, an undefined slope is a straight vertical line. So when you have a straight vertical line, the equations actually x equals some number, and that some number is whatever the x value of your point is. So there's no like y equals mx plus b form for this. It just doesn't work. You can't even put it into slope-intercept form, because how are you supposed to write an undefined slope for m? So instead, when you see that you have a slope that's undefined, you automatically just start with x equals, and then you find the x value of your point. Well, this is your x value because the x value is the front number, right? And so my answer automatically is x equals -3. That's my answer because the slope is undefined. That's the only weird one. Even if you had a slope of 0, excuse me, even if you had a slope of 0, you would still be able to use the point slope form, and it would still work out the way that you want it to. The only time you have to backtrack from that point slope form is when you have an undefined slope, but you just have to start with x equals. All right, now let's go through this last example. The last example wants you to go through the points -5, 2, and use a slope of -3/4. So first things first, we're going to label our numbers x1, y1, and then m. Now we're going to use that point slope form because we can, because it's not an undefined slope. And I'm going to replace the y1, the m, and the x1 with what I know they are for this question. So it's going to be y minus my y1, which is 2, equals my m, which is -3/4, and then x minus my x1, which is -5. So I'm going to put that -5 in parentheses. Okay, so I'm going to leave the left side as y minus 2 for now. Then, before I can distribute the -3/4, what I'm going to do is, remember the two negatives right next to each other right here, make a big positive. So I'm going to just rewrite it as -3/4 and then x plus 5 instead of x minus a -5. Now I can distribute the -3/4. So I get y minus 2 equals -3/4 x, and then -3/4 times 5 gives me -15 fourths. You can definitely use your calculator for this. And if you want to put it into decimal form, you can. I'm just going to keep mine in fractional form for this. And then we want to solve this for y, so I'm going to add 2 to each side. So the 2's on this side cancel out. I'm just left with y on the left side, and then negative 3/4 x. And then negative 15/4 plus 2 is, let's see, negative 7/4. And this is my answer. Y equals negative 3/4 x minus 7/4. And that is how you write an equation of a line with a point and a slope.